Hello everyone, today I want to do something really interesting, which is answering questions from my subscribers. So I do want to thank you so much for all your support. And this specific question is actually derived from one of my popular video, which is how to split a master spreadsheet into multiple spreadsheets with macro codes. So just as a simple recap, in this video, which is under my macro for beginner playlist, I had a master list and I was able to use a macro code to split the master by department into multiple tabs. So one of my subscriber, Mahesh, I hope you're watching this, Mahesh, asked me a question and to ask me if I can do something slightly different, which is similar to the master spreadsheet that I'm showing you right now. So in this master spreadsheet, we have multiple employees. I have 5 in the sample, but you can really have infinite number of employees. And I have their monthly payment. So for example, if you filter for the first person, like Abraham Lincoln, you have their first quarter months pay by months, and then you have the different pay elements, different amount, and then in the end you have a total, which is the total of everything. So this is how your master spreadsheet looks like. And my hash asked me if I can split the spreadsheet into something like this. So for example, if this is Abraham Lincoln's tab, I want it to be that I have all the months on the top with a total at the end, which is the sum of everything here, and I have all my pay elements laid out here. So actually, as you can tell, this is essentially a transpose pay special from the master, and by that I mean the pay special function. If you're not quite familiar with it, this is essentially selecting this part, and then you go copy, and then you go to this the one that you desire, and then you go home and paste special and transpose. And then it should give you all the information here, and then you just need to add the total to the end. So manually doing it is not complex, but the challenge here is if we have thousands of employees, how do we do this fast? And macro seems to be the only way out, right? So this is the challenge that Mahesh gave me, and let's see my answer to him, which is of course in the macro code format. So it is a little bit more complex than the one that I did for this one. And actually, if it's the first time you're watching this, I would strongly recommend you to watch this one first and then come back to this one as like a more upgraded training. So okay, so let me explain to you what my code is doing here step by step. Okay, so let me have my code window on the side. So essentially what I'm doing here is that I have 4 steps. I have 4 steps laid out of how I want to conquer this. The first thing is that I want to produce new tab with the employee name as the tab name. So to do that, it's the similar way that I did for the previous video, which is you filter out the unique employee names, make sure you have them in a unique list, and then name it. Here I name them as EEName. Just make sure you name it, and then make sure that you can create the tabs with all those names. And then the second step is in the master spreadsheet, make sure that you filter by employee for all their information, pay information, and then you transpose, copy and paste into the respective employee tab, like what I just shown here. And the third step is that to add the total column in column actually F in this case with the formula. So we do not want to do this manually. We'll want Excel to add all those formula and the total title for us, right? And then the fourth step is that after we did all that, we want to loop to the next employee until the end of the list. So that is my approach for this. And let's go into the codes to see how I set up. So the first thing is that I define the split code, which is essentially my employee name range here. That's the same as the previous video. I also dim a destination as the range, which I will explain in a minute. And I also have my master spreadsheet selected, and I also make sure I named my master data set as something called, say, master, right? So what I'm saying here is that, okay, first we select my master sheet, and I've already set my split code as in EEName, the range. And I'm saying that for each of the cell in the split code, let's say the first person is Marilyn, right? For Marilyn, let's add a new sheet after all the sheets, like the sheet count represents all the sheets we have. So we say add it to the end of the worksheet. And then we name them as the value of the cell, which is the employee name. And then we're saying that with the active workbook with the master spreadsheet, master range, we want to filter this data set with field number 2, 1, 2. Field number 2 is the employee name. That's what the field number 2 means. And then we want the criteria to be equal to the employee name. And as you can see, that's something that Excel will do for us automatically. And then I'm saying that after I have this filtered, I want to offset by 2 columns. And by that, I mean it was first selecting the whole thing as the employee data set. I'm asking the selection to move 2 columns to the right, where they would select something like this. And then this is the part where you have the visible cells. You have all the visible cells selected, and then you want to copy them. And then you set, we want to copy it to the employee tab, right? And then we want to copy it to A1. But what I'm doing here is I'm defining destination as the worksheet of the employee range A1 cell, and I'm saying that for this selection, let's paste special. Let's paste the formula and the number format, and let's paste transpose. So that is how I was able to paste this part into the respective employee tab, and then make sure that I still preserve the formulas here. So that's what the step does. And the destination is really a reference that makes this line much shorter. And then the next few columns that we're doing here, the next few lines that we're doing here is essentially adding the total column. So I'm saying that for F1, the cell F1, we know that this is consistent throughout all the tabs, and we are able to name it as total. And we also want to bold the title. So for column A and row 1, we want to make sure that the fonts are bolded. That's true. And then we're saying that for column for range F2 to F5, which is F2 to F5 here, we want to give them a formula. And the formula is that it's a sum, and the sum the formula that I'm saying here is that the sum in this cell is equal to a column to the left up until 4 columns to the left. So that's what I'm saying here. Like the -1 refers to the relative position of the cell in respect to this cell, which is F2. And then F-4 means that 4 cells, 4 columns apart. So that is how I define the cell formula here as from this column to this column. So that is how I create that formula here. And so that's done. And then after that, I have a columns autofit, which means that I would like make sure my columns will auto-fit my tags with. And then the last one is that after I did all that, I just want to make sure for prettify the cell, like I just want to make sure I select cell A1, which means looks clean and professional. And after that, I'll just make sure that I clean up the cut and copy mode. So you know, like for example, if I have copy, if you have copy, you have all those dotted line. This line here is actually saying that escape from this model, so you wouldn't have all those running dotted line there. And then I want to go back to my master spreadsheet, and I want to make sure that if it's in auto filter mode, then I clean it so it would look exactly the same as when we just started. And that is a time when we start to the when we go to the next cell, which is the next employee. So that is how we loop around for the different tabs, and that's how the code is written. And now let's try to run the code. As always, you can run it directly from here by going to the run sub or F5, or you can add a button here, say, and then link to the code that we just wrote, and then let's say run macro. You can name it as in any way you want. So let's now run it. Okay, so now you see we have all those 5 tabs, and they have exactly the kind of information that we need. And actually, if you go to here, it is the formula that we need, and if you go here, it is exactly the formula that we need as well. So that is how we do this. As a bonus to the end, I just want to emphasize a little bit more on how we can extend from this. So let's say what if, like, I have 5 employees showing here. What if you have 50 or 500? It is actually very easy. Like, you don't even need to change the code itself for that. You just make sure you have all your 500 or 5,000 employees. Well, hopefully you don't have that much to worry about, but just make sure you have all those unique names named here properly, and then just make sure that the name you have, like you will need to reselect the range for this name, for the employee name, to make sure that you select all the employees here. However, you don't need to change that in your formula here, because we just say the range. You just need to make sure your named range is named properly. And the same case for the master spreadsheet. Like for example, now the master spreadsheet is covering all those employees here. If you need to add more employees, or if you need to add more months, you want to add it to the end of the year, then you just need to make sure you reselect and redefine the range for your master database. And it is also the same thing if you need to, let's say if you have 3 items here, and then you have the formula here. What if you want to add one more column here with like another additional item, and then you might want to change the formula here to something like this, right? So all that you did here actually does not really impact, well, it barely impacts the formula here. The one thing that would impact is the total range, because when you add a new item here, or when you add a new month here, sometimes like that means that your total might not be column F, right? Like it might be column G or column H or something else. So if that's the case, you just need to make sure all those cell reference on your employee tab are properly referred. Otherwise, it wouldn't work the way you want, right? But then essentially after you do all that, you just need to make sure that you reselect everything, and make sure you name them properly. Let's say if we want to change the range for our master the master name range, what you need to do is actually go to named range, go to the master selection, go here, and then just make sure you select it as the way you want, which is a new thing, and then go click on that. Let's do it again. Let's say if this is a new one that we want to do, and then just select OK and then close. And then that is actually how easy it is, and you should be all set. And also, of course, if you're not filtering, if your employee name is not on the second column, if it's on the first column or the third column, then you just need to make sure you're filtering on the right field, right? So actually that is all that I want to share today, and as always I will paste the code into the description, and I hope that this video is helpful to you.